Assalamu alaikum, guys, and hi everyone in Pakistan and across the world. I'm Ali Baqir Khan with another episode of Youth Alumni Association. Today, with me again is Ruqia. Ruqia, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Ali. How are you doing?
Pretty good, can't complain. It's a good weekend and a good, bright, sunny day here in Lahore. And what about you?
Yes, it's been actually quite long. Great to catch up after such a long time. Just been, occupied with a lot of things going on in the past months, but glad to be back here and, let's get it started.
All right, that's really good to know. First thing first, Ruqia, I just saw on LinkedIn that you're working for another company, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, I just recently actually joined their venture. It's an IT consulting firm based in USA. So
All
I'm
right.
working with them as a consultant at the moment, but
So,
I do have my current job. I'm continuing that as well. So it's not like,
all right. So you've got like
nine
a
to
lot on
five.
your shoulders these
Yeah,
days. Is that okay? That's
yeah.
good to know. And then
I
you're
think it was
taking,
high time. It was high time because there comes a point in your career that, you want to keep growing and keep learning. So I was like, it's high time that I need to go into that. So it was a good chance and, I took it up. You have to take a lot of risks, during your
yeah, I
career.
mean,
So it was like
multitasking is something, it's
good.
obviously gonna benefit you. I mean,
Yeah,
starting from the
definitely.
start of our podcast, when you actually, told me about, and the youth as well, regarding, the different areas of world that you've been into. So having different knowledge and different perspectives is never too bad. Starting from
Definitely.
that, today the discussion is going to be a little bit about changing trends globally. Now, when we talk about changing trends, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about social media. We talk about changing trends in the global market. For example, the office that you're working at, or the workspace, or where you're working from home. It wasn't there before COVID, but that trend has changed as well. So there are pros and cons associated to that factor. Rukia, I mean, in terms of changing trends, like I would not just say changing trends in terms of social media, but I would also like to use the word climate change and all those aspects where I think now it's a high time where we guys need to control certain things. In business management, there's always one thing, that's planning, organizing, leading, and the last thing is controlling. And if you're not controlling that, everything is messed up. So, point being is, how would you agree to that? Or if you do not agree, what is your point of view? Go ahead and explain, please.
Ali, I think change, it's a very, very, very famous saying, change is the only constant, right?
Yeah.
It's a paradox in itself, but that's pretty true. You can't stop something from changing or some people or situation from changing. It's going to happen. It's just that how are you going to cope up with it and how are you going to, adjust accordingly? Definitely everything has its pros and cons, but what you have to try to do as a person, as a human on this earth, you have to try to mitigate the effects and try to make sure that you're helping the change be positive more than be negative. So when you're talking about climate change and everything else, definitely a lot of changes have happened in the
Emerged.
past
Yeah.
decade or so. That's obviously because a lot of things are changing. We're talking about changes in digital technology, we're talking about changes in people's behavior because of that, changes in lifestyle, changes in their routines, changes in their preferences basically.
Yeah.
So definitely there's a lot of change if we're specifically talking about digital technology. As we were talking about that as well, that social media, how it's become
I mean, there are
such
pros and
that
cons. People are actually
definitely
following
there.
it, and at times it's too much. I mean, screen time, if you see in your phone, I mean, before sleeping, it's not, I mean, it's a ritual these days that you gotta follow what your WhatsApp status is like, or who's on Instagram, what your cousins are doing, what they're up to. Okay, if they're actually, late at night at 1 o'clock and you're not there, so you're not a part of that cool, status quo that we guys have. So point being is
Yeah,
like,
and I think,
yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
sorry to cut you off. I think it's all on our elderly as well as ourselves, because there comes a point in time, I've said this many times before as well, that once you're a kid, then you are, you're growing up, you're a teenager, then you become a mature adult. There comes a point in time that you can't keep blaming your surroundings, or you can't keep blaming your parents, or just people around you, that it's because of them that I am this way. You have to make those tough decisions in your life that, I have to discipline myself. I know that I'm, getting off the track, so I need to fix my track. So when we're talking about, like, changes in social media specifically, because that is the hype of the topics these days, because digital
Yeah.
technology is, it's advancing day by day. Maybe half of the things that we're not even aware of, they're happening, but they're not happening in our country at the moment, but they're happening all around the world.
Yeah.
So definitely there's pros and cons of everything. But when we're talking about the pros, yes, your interaction, like, I'm sitting here, you're sitting in a different city, we're talking, we are trying to utilize, and make positive use of our time so that we can talk about something positive which can, impact someone, and if they listen to it, they can benefit from it. We could also be misusing this time, or we could also be misusing these mediums of communication and whatnot. So those medium of communications and how someone is utilizing them, that's on them. And if they're kids, then obviously it's on their parents, because they need to keep that check and balance on them. Yes, there's an increased awareness and, knowledge of, who's doing what because of social media. But then I think the con side of that is that when we're sitting next to each other, our interactions are, minimized,
Very
because
limited.
everyone's just on their phones.
Yeah.
Like, we see that around, I see that around, at home, at work, everywhere outside you go. I'm sure you've seen it as well, that when you're sitting with, like, a group of people, whether it's your family, your friends, or whoever, or your coworkers, there's not a moment that one person is not without their phone, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just become that thing that's just going to be with you. It's on us to how we, minimize that use for its positive. Like, it's a simple thing. When you're eating, don't use your phone, put it to the side,
But
when
it's
you're talking
happening.
to
It's happening
someone.
everywhere. I mean, phone is a norm, and people at times, give us respect. For example, you have a call. You might say, "Ali, can I have just like 2 minutes?" And I would go like, "Yeah, okay," because you've got a phone call,
Yeah.
rather than actually giving importance to the person, who's sitting right next to you. And it could be
Yeah.
your
And
mother and your father as well. I'll be very honest.
definitely. And I think, Ali, that just depends on how you discipline yourself, because most of the time what I do is, like, if I'm sitting with someone, if I'm sitting with you or someone else, and I'm talking about something, and
Yeah.
a call comes in the middle that is not urgent for me at the moment, I will politely decline that call. I will give time to
Politely
the
just
person
let them
sitting
know,
in
yeah,
front of me.
I'll get back to you.
Exactly.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, or just ignore the call at the moment, and I'll call them back when I'm done, because obviously that's also my time, and that's also the person's time who's sitting in front of me. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of respect that you're giving. And then when you're sitting, at dinner or lunch or whatever, and you're doing the same behavior, so obviously then there comes a point in time that when we complain that, our kids are doing this, or, our youngsters are doing this,
Yeah.
you can't expect to be a bad role model and then expect them to be doing better things than you just because you told them to, right? So
Definitely.
it's a whole complicated web of,
I'd like
thoughts
to
and
add
points.
on one thing here. I mean, I went to a cafe and it was written there that we guys don't provide Wi-Fi, and we would respect you if you guys don't use your 4G, because it's a one-on-one zone. That
Oh,
means like
really?
if
Where was that?
I mean, it was in Lahore actually. I don't
Oh,
remember. It
nice.
has been a couple of years, but I really liked the idea at that time. Why? Because they were
I'm
emphasizing
just
on that fact.
I'm
Uh,
just wondering, did they have any customers? Because
No, they did have,
considering
they did
they
have,
did,
but they were
that's
trying to
good.
implement a policy where they were
I
trying to,
mean, that's good, yeah.
inculcate that culture in which people can actually go ahead and talk to each other. So my
Yeah.
point is that now let's come to the point where you talk about parents. Now, if you talk about parents, because I personally have been going to different schools and institutes, tier one, tier two, and tier three as well. And I've been asking them questions, and they go like, "What can we do about it?" I mean, let me give you my own example. For example, you guys are four siblings, right? I'm the eldest brother. My younger brother has a different routine than what I used to have back in those days. And if I ask my dad, "Why aren't you keeping the same check and balance?" he simply has the answer that, things change and you have to change yourself as well. So my point is the social taboo, I would just say that, I mean, is getting too much into us, that we, even parents, like, we are not actually going ahead and teaching kids the way we are supposed to. Because I remember when I was a child, there used to be a couple of few channels that I was supposed to watch. That's it. I was allowed to watch. I would rather say, like National Geographic, because my parents knew what I was watching. Because it affects your brain. These days, I've seen kids getting so aggressive There was a little kid in my house, and he was like, okay, let's play wrestling. And I was like, okay, let's go ahead. And he actually hit a punch on my face directly. And I was like, dude, I mean, this is too much aggression. I spoke to his mother, and she was like, he watches a lot of cartoons. He needs some counseling. So kids, they don't need counseling from some counselors. They need counseling from you guys. You guys are the
Yeah,
ones
from
who are
your
supposed to
parents.
speak to them, right? I mean, there's a
Yeah.
Netflix kids thing as well. I mean, you can go ahead and you can, I mean, there needs to be a scheduled timetable. That's what I think personally. In my childhood, my father used to ask us to write down whether what your timetable is and then paste it on your, cupboard or wherever on the wall. So that at least, we guys have an idea during our summer vacations. And when I went to a place and when I asked him that I want to visit another place in the same city, let's for example, he asked me first write down what happened in that place and what you got out of it, and then we'll move to another. So these kind of things are missing. Why? Because now, uh, one more thing that I would like to add is like, when was the last time when you read a newspaper, like a proper newspaper, besides the news that you follow on
Um,
Instagram and all?
Actually, just a few days ago, because
Okay.
I really like to I read books and everything. So I really believe that, reading the actual hard copy of something, it's totally different than reading it on, a Kindle or an e-reader or something. And just the essence of that, which our kids are definitely missing these days, right?
That's my
Why are
point.
they missing it? Because nobody around them is doing it. Yes, I agree that technology is really
It's on
advancing and it's
boom.
really
E-commerce
helping
is
us.
there, and you need to
Yeah,
actually
it's
get
really
along with it.
helping us and it's really making everything convenient. But it's come to a point where that convenience is literally making us all lazy humans. It's not just about, just about books or whatnot. It's about everything, like even your daily chores or something, a lot of times we have everything at the fingertips that, we fail to realize how the actual thing needs to be done,
Yeah,
or what's the essence that you're going to get from that. So yes, and I mean, oftentimes when you're driving around, so sometimes, when I'm going to work or coming back from work, there are those street vendors who are usually selling newspapers. um
that's good to know.
I'll just get
In
something from them
Islamabad,
as
right? I
well.
mean,
Yeah, in
basically, there's
Islamabad.
yeah,
So
but
I'll just get that from them as well. And one thing I really like about that is that, they're selling something, they're not begging.
that's
Whether
great.
it's a newspaper that I don't need, or I might just need it down the line or something, I'll just get it from them because they're not begging for the money. They're actually selling something they have, like it's a product of theirs, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a newspaper or whether it's those, car cleaning cloths or whatever it is. um
Okay, so I'll
so
I'll, I'll
those are
start
the
off with your example. My example personally as well. Like I'm working from home these days currently because I'm
yeah.
currently working as a quality manager at a company where different people are interacting. So I'm getting to know people in India, people in Australia, people in US, and that is the reason I got a lot of exposure because I'm able to speak their language now as well, right? So this is one positive aspect of social media, that you can get to interact with a lot of different people. Now it's not too hard, to actually get a chance to get into an organization. Like you are a consultant for a USA firm. You're sitting in Pakistan and you're doing your job, right? But you're getting the
Right.
same exposure, if not environmental exposure, but the work level is still the same, right? You're speaking to people in the US and you're
Definitely,
actually working
definitely.
for them. So that's the positive side. Now, if you talk about the negative side, what would be the negative side? I mean, coming from your side, I have a lot of lists, but I would want, I mean, I've got a lot of pointers here, but I would want to hear it from you personally.
Negative side, as I already discussed, that it's making us lazy to some extent. Yes, it is very convenient, but it's making us lazy. Then I think another most important thing is that our level of tolerance has quite diminished,
Yeah.
because we think, it's a basic example. We have search engines at our fingertips, right?
Yep.
So anybody wants to search up something, they're just going to search it up. They're not going to see, if that website is authentic or if it's not authentic. Everybody's just going to become an expert within seconds of their search.
Yeah. It does not matter
And
what the age is
then
even. Yeah. I mean,
then
point is,
trying to utilize that search of theirs to undermine other people and show them that as if, like they know better. And at times it's good that you are, for example, if you're going to a doctor, right?
yeah.
um, I personally had that habit that if I'm ever going to a doctor or something, first I will understand what is happening to me. Then I can go explain to them that, this is happening to me. Um, because I have been dealing with certain health issues in the past. So, that was just a habit that I developed. And if they give me some medicine, I'm going to search it up. I'm going to question them
And
about
they
it.
themselves are supposed to tell you about it. I'll
They're
be very
supposed to
honest.
tell you,
The
but
side
they
effects
don't.
of it. Actually, in
But
Pakistan, they
they
don't,
don't.
but it's
They
good to
don't.
research. I do the same
Yeah.
thing
And
for myself.
when you ask them, when you actually ask them and you cross question them, it becomes a matter of ego, which it shouldn't, because they're
Yeah,
doctors, they're professionals, and they should
yeah,
handle it that way.
yeah,
And it's not like we're telling them that, this is my condition. No, we're not telling them that. We're telling them that this is what we're feeling. They're
yeah.
supposed to counsel you on that and go through with that, right? So those
Of
are just
course.
like the pros. Like, yes, it helps you understand yourself. Like, a lot of times I'm having some issues, I'm gonna search it up and figure it out myself,
Yeah.
because I'm one of those people that, like, um, I would prefer to get something done by myself before I can ask someone for help.
Hmm.
That's gonna be like my last resort, because I sometimes feel like I don't want to bother other people with my problems. They have their problems as well, right? So
Definitely.
first I'm gonna try to figure that out. That's a positive side of that. But the negative side is that there's so much information there that you can't figure out which is right or wrong. That all comes down on your understanding and your potential about utilizing that search engine. So some people can utilize it to the wrong side, like they're going to bring up fake news or whatnot from
Yeah, and
in
people might even believe
uncredible
that. Okay,
sources.
and honestly speaking, there are blogs that are not even true at times. I've seen those blogs on
Yeah.
Facebook, fake news, just to get the traffic in, just to get those likes, just to earn money. We're
Yeah,
doing all,
exactly. So
yeah,
like that whole that whole
methodology
culture
or
of
the, yeah,
becoming famous and becoming just having an online presence, it makes you lose your physical presence,
see,
reality
online
check.
having an online presence, I think is a really good thing these days. But point being is like as long as it's helping people as well. I mean, if you being Ruqia, if you're actually going ahead and your industry is fashion designing, makes a lot of sense that you being a fashion designer, or for example, you're an actress, you need to have that presence. Why? Because people would
Yeah.
want to actually, see you on the internet or on the television. But on the other hand, if you being a consultant start doing these kind of things just to get a little famous, it's not, I mean, it's fine as well because
It
I
doesn't
like to,
align with your career trajectory, if I would say,
yeah,
because you're going out of the way just to like do something. Yes, if it's a it's your hobby or you want to do something, yes, you can do it on the side, but certain things have to align to make it realistic, so to say.
make it
So
realistic.
definitely a lot of people are doing that, but I think there needs to be a lot of check and balance, and
So
then we're
okay,
blindly
we've
following
discussed,
people.
yeah, we've discussed a lot of problems and the negative aspects and the positive aspects. Now, coming towards the part where we can find out a solution for that, because I always do a podcast in which I tell the youth that okay, if these are the problems, this is the way how we can resolve them as well, right? Because there's no point of actually discussing it like journalists who are just there talking about
Yeah,
politics and there's no solution
definitely.
to it, right? So now let's come towards the part where we can, for example, you being Rukia, I just give you a designation that, okay, I mean, that's of your interest that, okay, you want to go ahead and you want to do and help the society, minimize this problem that actually does exist. So what would be certain steps or certain things that you might implement that you think can actually change the culture globally as well as starting from your own home? Because obviously charity begins at home. People are going to follow you if you start making you yourself as a role model for them. So let's just come with your examples, then let's see what you've got.
Well, Ali, if I were to say how we could like, help and try to bring about a change, I'm always of the opinion that yes, charity does become, it's does start at home, and you have to change yourself first, and then it becomes a domino effect. Like if I'm gonna try to change something here, then I have neighbors who might, look into that change, they'll try to follow those footsteps. Then you have relatives and friends and family, and it's a whole thing. So definitely it starts with you. What do you have to do? I know a lot, talking to a lot of youth and mid-career professionals and then friends and loved ones, you come to realize that there's, because of this need of competition and need to be visible out in the world. Not everybody has that, but it's most people's, that they would love that. They would love to be the center of attention and,
Yeah.
be known for something, right? Um, so we're in a race to get that. And we're in a race to be successful or be settled down or something. We've created these definitions ourselves. And, yes, our elders might believe something, but we might believe something else. So then there comes a clash of, the thought processes.
Yeah.
But what you have to do is, first of all, you have to realize that it's you in the end, right? You have to see what's going to work for you, what's going to make you happy within the constraints of, obviously, one is your religion, one is your moral values, your ethical values. You have to keep all of that into consideration.
Yeah.
As long as you are doing it within the respectful boundaries, then comes about boundaries. What are boundaries? Sometimes you need to learn how to set boundaries with people around you, right? And they have to be healthy boundaries. It can't just be like, no, don't talk to me, I don't want to talk to anyone, I'm just going to be like, a soul, this person, whatever. It does happen sometimes because, we're humans and we do get tired with a lot of things going on around, that sometimes you can't really share a lot of things that are going around with anyone. It's
Yeah.
just you and your God, right?
That's it.
So
Yeah.
first and most important is that you have to realize that you are the center of
Your
that. Then
spiritual
you have to
faith
identify.
should be there. That's what you're trying to say. If you're
Definitely. And I mean, I'm not going to make it a matter of religion or anything, but I would like to add on to that anytime in my life that I've seen that the further you step away from your religion, from your faith, the more messed up things start to become. And the second you start having, that sabr and that tawakkul, that everything is, on Allah's hands. You're
Yeah, I
doing your
like your words of sabr
best.
and tawakkul, taaleem or tarbiyat. These are a few words that are really, positive, and we need to
And these are things
implement
that we have
those.
to implement them, right?
Yeah,
And you have to implement them into yourself first before you can, implement into anybody else.
definitely.
And once you implement those things into yourself, your whole vibe is going to show that. When you're going
Okay.
to be walking down the hall, or when you're walking into a room, your vibe is going to, feel that certain level of contentment.
Yeah.
And it's all an inside journey. I mean, I've went through it, I'm going through it. It's a very tough journey, but you
So what
have
you're
to
trying to
do
say
it.
is your inner instinct has to be there. I mean, in order to actually accept that, okay, you're gonna actually go for the positive move. That's
Yes,
one.
it has to be there.
One more thing is you might have heard, in a lot of season in movies like high school, especially where parents, in Western countries, they use a word for children, grounded. You're grounded. Why do they say
Yeah.
that? Because they have rules and they're strict to it, and the child has to stay at home no matter what. So there is a certain fear, not just in our country, in other countries at a global level as well. So
Yes,
if
definitely.
we need to keep a check and balance. I would totally agree. But how about we start from the schools, because parents these days are really really busy. Let me be very honest, because it's very competitive, survival for the fittest. A mother is working, a father is working. I'm not going to just blame totally on the school, but I think now that's the only option that we guys have, because parents are coming, like for example, the father is coming 7 p.m. at night. He has a lot of stuff to do, and he's like, okay, I want to sleep. Mother is there to take care of kids, but she on the other hand also is busy, and which is very very, I'm being very honest, this is happening in a nuclear world these days. I mean, people are following these kind of things, that okay, if not, then how would we survive? Why? Because we have to maintain a social status, in which we can, we need to do sometimes more than one job, and all that. That's one perspective that I'm sharing. It does not fit for everyone. Obviously there are different people, there are different categories, but for people like these, where do you think like schools or institutes can help us out? I mean, can they go ahead and can they do that? Or you would disagree, and you would agree to disagree with me to this statement, and you would say that no, parents again are equally responsible, and they are the first ones, because it's a triangle between the child, teacher, and the parent. So what's your perspective on this statement? Because if you ask parents, this is because I've been having a lot of interactions with different parents, and this is what they come up with, in the end. What can I do? The school has asked me to give them a tab. But if I don't have the internet connection, and what if I'm cooking, in my kitchen, I don't have those, measures to just go ahead and block those websites. So point being is this is what their explanations are. So do you have an answer to these kind of statements?
Yeah, Ali, I do have an answer to that. When there's a will, there's always a way. And I strongly believe with that
Yep.
because when you're talking about parents, I mean, I know people might, make this a point of concern that, I'm a single 29-year-old. What do I know about parenting or whatnot? I'm not here to judge anyone or, give them advice
Of
related to
course.
parenting or anything, but I'm just
Yeah.
talking about what I'm seeing around because I have a huge family. I've, dealt with a lot of people who have kids, and I've seen those kids grow up from little babies to teenagers and whatnot and everything, and then talking to other people as well. When I'm talking about when there's a will, there's always a way. Yes, I do agree with you that to a large extent schools have to be involved because a kid is spending most of their day at the school, right?
Yeah.
But that example that you gave of that the school is asking someone to give them a tablet and everything, that's where my point of concern comes in the beginning, is that we are following that status quo sort of thing because we
Yeah.
don't have the availability of good educational institutes, right? So we're going to go for the best of the best, and then when the best of the best come to these, we only have a few options. I'm not going to name any because then it becomes too specific
I
and I don't
understand
want to
that.
go
Yeah.
into those details, right?
Yeah.
But we only have then a few options left. So what are parents going to do? Obviously they're going to go for that kid, that educational institute, because they don't have an option.
Yeah.
Then those institutes are so like elite institutes, so to say, or whatsoever, so obviously they're going to have those sort of requirements. So that's just a consequence of that decision, right? Educational institutes, yes, they need to improve themselves. I'm not sure how this is going to go about, but yes, educational institutes do need to heavily work on these things, that they need to work on their educational material, they need to work on their extracurricular activities, they need to work on like basic things that they're providing the kids, right? Their environments. I
Besides
was in
just the
school.
grading factor that, okay, they were
Yeah,
just
besides
get an A
just the
star.
grading and just having, producing bookworms, they need to promote and they need to support kids who are, special in some cases, or they're extra smart, and you need to work on those.
Yeah.
And secondly, when we're talking about the teacher to student ratio, that is one of the major factors that leads to these things, because when you have one teacher who's looking after like 50, 60 kids, they're not going to get the same attention.
Yeah.
So you need to work on those as well. You need to work on your staffing, your teachers, and are you hiring quality staff? Like, where the HR of those institutes comes into play. Are you hiring quality teachers?
So
No,
you
you're
need to
not.
have a proper check of before
Yeah,
interviewing
you
them,
need to
before
have a
hiring them,
proper plan before you go
a
into
proper
that.
plan.
You
I get
can't
it.
just be like, or if you're hiring fresh grads for teaching or whatever positions, have some sort of training for them. I'm sure there are certain
Training.
things in place, but you need to improve those things and you need to work on them. And it's not just a one-time thing, it's a continuous thing. Because obviously if syllabuses are changing and everything is changing, you need to keep working on those things, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then there are a lot of other things, like I remember when we used to be in school, there used to be so much discipline, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, what is it? If the school says something, the parents come running to the school. How dare you say this to my child?
I
I mean,
understand
that
that.
is not how it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah. You
We've
need to
lost that
let them know
respect
that we
for
need to
teachers.
respect. Respect is a very, yeah, I
Yeah.
understand that.
Like teachers in our time period, it was like, our role models. Like we would,
I'm still in touch with my teachers, and I still
yeah,
respect them.
and
I cannot even imagine just using a wrong word for my teacher. I don't know, for some reason.
exactly. And like I'm still in touch with my teachers from all the way from grade one, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is that the importance of teachers has diminished. Why? Because when a child tells you that, this happened, and then you go straight to the school and you're
You don't
not
even
even
believe,
listening,
and you
you
just
don't
start
believe what the
believing
teacher is
actually.
saying,
Yeah,
but you
exactly.
think that your son or your daughter is of the right opinion.
Because you're paying
However,
money in the end. You're paying a lot of
yeah,
money, and then
however,
you feel like, that's
I think
that's the right thing to do.
those scenarios, Ali, are scenarios when it's the time for the parents to teach and discipline their kids, right?
Of course.
Not to give in to their unnecessary and entitled demands or whatnot.
Yeah.
But we're not doing that. Why? Because we have excuses for that, right? That, oh, this happened or that happened.
Yeah.
And I think all the way it comes before even the kid is in the world, right? You made that decision.
You're
Parents need to be
responsible
getting,
for that. You need to make
yeah,
sure that you're
parents need to
taking
be
responsibility.
getting that counseling before they even make
There's no
those
concept
decisions,
in Pakistan,
right?
unfortunately, of having that couple counseling and all that. The child needs to,
There's
how
no,
you
it's
need
just
to
like,
interact with the child, the confidence building. You don't need to suppress a child. A lot of factors. I mean,
yeah,
when you talk about, I mean, it's like a bipolar world going on. There are good students as well, but at times you might see, students misbehaving, or at times you might. I'll give you my personal example. I went to Lahore Grammar Institute, Lahore Grammar School, actually in Lahore, which is a good tier one institute actually. So I
yeah.
was giving a presentation of that in class in Vidmaker thing to the students because it was for grade 3 and grade 5. And what
Yeah.
a boy did to a girl was, I mean, he took his shoe off and he started rubbing it on, her hair, and the teacher was fidgeting on the cell phone. And I was like, what is going on? And then the teacher goes like, this is how these kids are. What am I supposed to say? If I speak to them, their parents are gonna come and I'm not gonna get my job anymore. I would be fired right away. And I was like, whoa, what the hell? I mean,
Seriously,
seriously, I
kids
mean,
get
this is
expelled for these
disgusting.
behaviors.
Exactly. I mean, exactly. See, this is one practical example that I'm giving, which happened in front of my own eyes. And just imagine
Yeah.
how dirty the example is. I mean, what sort of example is that? I mean, kids need, and obviously in the end, it's your parental background that you're trying to show that, whatever thing that you're doing. I mean, if I'm a parent, if my child does that in future, I would never spare my child for this thing. I mean, I would go like once and last. First, it would not exist. I'll be very honest. If it does, I would try to make sure that apart from school, me being the parent, I'm responsible equally. So we need to take those responsibilities and we need to acknowledge that yes, we are
Yeah.
involved into this as well. Ruqia, we've just got like 2 minutes remaining, as we are already in a rush with the session, and I need to keep it concise. Why? So that people actually learn and they stick to the context as well, because these days people would rather go to that Maula Jat movie that's about to release, and they would rather listen to Fawad Khan, which is okay as well, but
Yeah.
they're listening to us as well. Slowly and gradually you see like at least 3 to 4 500 views, which is good. If even 10 to 50 people are getting what our point of view is, I think our job is done, our 30 minutes are utilized. And this is what I personally think. And I seriously am thankful for you as well, to you actually, for joining in the session. Like always, you've been joining. What would be
Sure.
the last words that you would like to say, to coming towards the end?
Um, just Ali, that as we've already discussed, that changes are definitely gonna come in a lot of things, and a lot of times we might resist those changes because we are so used to our comfort zones and whatnot. But we need to come to an understanding that you have to accept those changes, whether
Except in a
positively.
way where you're
Yes,
coaching
accept
your kids as well. Yeah.
them, acknowledge them, and then find out a way how you're going to go about it. And if you think that you're not going to be able to live with that change, if it's a personal change or whatnot, then you have to make the change of the change yourself. Um, you can't keep living in the fear of that, I'm uncomfortable or this and that, because your boundaries and your everything comes firstly. That's most important thing that you have to look into. Secondly, whatever we can do in our capacity, when we're talking about, like, climate change is happening and everything else is happening. We weren't able to really touch on the climate change aspect of things because
We'll
we're a
do
little
that
short on
later on.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do it in one of our other sessions, definitely. But a lot of things are happening all around the world. It's not just Pakistan that's been, facing these floods and everything.
It's
They've been
everywhere.
happening all around the world. So we need to figure out what we're doing in our daily lifestyles. Yes, we've had that, benefit of convenience, that we have everything at our hands, ready, packaged, everything. But we need to make those changes, like, in our grocery shopping routines or whatever, like minimize the use of plastic. I mean, plastic was banned in Pakistan, but
It
it's still being
was.
utilized. Why is it being
Because
utilized?
of us.
Because there are people, yeah, because of us, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because there are people who are providing that plastic and there are people who are using it. So
Using
how
it.
can we minimize it? Try to go for, healthier options or greener options,
Understandable.
wherever you can. So
Yes.
those are just things that, like, you have to make those personal changes, if I'm not making those changes in my life personally, then
We
I
cannot
can't be
expect
telling
others
somebody
to do
else.
the same then.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
So
Ruqia. It was actually nice talking to you about the climate change. It's a vast topic, so I would
oh,
appreciate, I mean,
definitely.
if we can do that sometime later on. Thank you for being part of today's podcast. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you for having me. Hopefully we'll be talking soon again.
Inshallah. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye bye. Have a
Bye
good day.
bye. Take care.